doesn't hold here. Secondly, we talk about the way that we create two nations by creating separate and increasingly Western cultures among local elites, why that destroys senses of nationhood and therefore destroys the kind of political will that you sometimes get in countries with strong senses of communal identity to introduce altruistic policy. Thirdly, I'm going to talk about expatriates, in particular because I think they have substantial landscape communities, and why their predominant images of local culture are profoundly distorted and the negative impact we can. First of all, however, some rebuttals. So we have two things coming out from this side. So I'll start at the back. So we're told that when you're confronted with poverty, you are likely to give more money to the poor. I will deal with why there will still be rich people seeing poverty in a second, right? But if we assume that holds right, removing gated communities presumably just dramatically increases this exposure, and therefore the likelihood that these people are going to give more money. In addition, we deny that these people are exposed currently to these to this extreme poverty, right? Because we think that they can just sit in their chauffeur-driven aircon cars with tinted windows. It's much nicer to look at your iPad than it is to be confronted by the reality, and it is much easier to avoid confronting that reality when you have so little necessary contact with the outside world. We're told, in one example, South Africa pushed really hard for financial integration, something. I mean, the consistent failure to uphold the Constitutional Association of Human Rights provided the Constitution of South Africa would suggest that's questionable. But we say, in addition, the biggest push was at the end of apartheid when there was a sense of communal nationhood after the kind of rebirth after the election of Mandela. We think that decreases and support decreases when in fact the white people now feel like the post-apartheid dream is broken and black people implement them again. We think that kind of cultural segmentation happens with gated communities. We think it's really problematic. So, quickly, why would local elites leave and why do people leave? We think there are two types of elites, right? Local elites who domestically are rich in these countries where they are from there. We think there are several reasons why they want to leave. Number one, they have large amounts of family, capital, land, investment. We think it is not as easy to upsticks and leave as it might be thought. You also may, we think similarly, your children might be in education. We think these are all fairly good reasons, right? We say, the notion that I'll just move somewhere, presumably you're not going to completely leave the country. So the analysis we got was, well, you'll move to somewhere else rich. Presumably there are not entire cities which are solely filled with rich people. Even if they move somewhere, from Joburg to Cape Town, you're still confronted with poverty, right? So we say, even if there is a move, it is a comparative improvement. We say, in addition, right, we do recognise that realistically, these people will probably live in rich neighbourhoods. They will probably still have bars on their windows. The notion that there is no minimal degree of security, right, and these people will necessarily have to leave seems bizarre. We also think we have jobs here. That's fairly important, right? Local economies have jobs which pay lots of money because there are financial incentives to stay. Then, secondly, expatriates. We say big multinationals. It's quite difficult to move all the oil from the Niger Delta and then export it elsewhere where it's more convenient, right? We think resources, for example, means that you just cannot leave these places. Similarly, we think that when wanting to set up a local office, you kind of have to set up one in Lagos, right? We think that all of these kind of economic incentives for large companies to send their people there, they may have to pay them more to incentivize them to go there. We still think they're going to remain there, right? Similarly, if you're working for a large multinational, the IMF, a multi-NGO thing, like the IMF and the WTO, presumably you will still need to send people there. We think all of these these towns still exist, and we think that it's still important that you have to go there. Large urban capitals of poor countries will still have poor people. You still need to be in those capitals. End. Right. Okay. And we said that even if some people do leave, we see on the comparative that people who stay are worth it. Well, this is ridiculous. Okay, so now let's talk about microeconomies of these nations. So, number one, we think that actually gated communities often have totally segmented economies, they have separate shops. It's quite bizarre, actually. If you enter them often, the only place that you can have a Walmart in India, right, is in a gated community. We think that this money is spirited away and remains within gated communities, in particular because multinational chains often solely set up in these communities. We say at the point at which you are likely to, we think that's problematic, because in the consequentialist term, money doesn't go back into the community, and on that stuff, if you've given that you profit off the backs of poor people who work for you, we think you should probably give some of that money back. We say, why is it more likely that you get money reinfused into the economy? Because we think that actually people often do the shopping. If you go to malls as a teenager, you can't go to a gated community. We think there's some degree that, for example, local outlets will be operating there. We say, however, things like food and standard provisions, people like maids and domestic servants are often also who do the food shopping and provisions. Now, at the point at which you are no longer an gated community, you're much more
run corporations, they pay massive redistribution taxes under your model, they already give back more than enough. And the practical outcome
Oh,
of
that's
unskilled
bollocks.